Are we actually this close towards peace between the East and the West? Well, this AI video suggests yes. As of course, that is a fake video, and the reality of peace is far further than a lot of people understand it to be, as there are some underhanded efforts right now trying to sabotage the prospects of a ceasefire and an end to the proxy conflict between Russia and the United States. Now, Donald Trump has just made some very eye-opening, bold, wild statements about his upcoming summit with the Russian president in Alaska that he mistakenly said Russia. We'll play that clip. We'll play you other clips that I thought was very important, specifically when it comes to a revelation of how Trump says, yeah, Russia was very close towards taking Kiev, and then one mistake made sure that they were not able to do that, as he was personally bragging about the personal involvement that he has when it came to stopping the Russians, stopping their pipelines, stopping their interests from moving forward. But will this be statements that, of course, will work for the proposed peace here? Well, we're going to be talking about that, as well as the very underhanded efforts right now in this independent media broadcast. And if you appreciate this type of perspective and nuanced voices, subscribe. Click the notification button. You usually find voices that are either 100% pro-war, all over the corporate media, now even alternative media. Some people are like, oh, it's all 100% Russia's all good. No, 100% Ukraine's good. You don't find that here. And if you appreciate that, subscribe, click the notification button. As of course, right now, the news and everyone else is talking about this one particular clip from Donald Trump's press conference, where he gave some very interesting details about the upcoming potential truce and pause in fighting that soon could be happening between Russia and Ukraine, saying this.
And it's embarrassing for me to be up here. You know, I'm going to see Putin. I'm going to Russia on Friday. I don't like being up here talking about how unsafe and how dirty and disgusting this once beautiful capital.
As a lot of people are saying, oh, how dare he? It looks like the president of the United States made a mistake, but there could also be a potential that they could be meeting on the island that is representative of American and Russian territory as well, that is in the mix of the divider line that divides the time zones. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how and where all of the kind of proceedings and meeting will take place. But as of right now, it looks like it is happening specifically in Alaska. Now, is this a big deal? No, I don't think so. Donald Trump, I think during his statement, also announced how 88% of the people in Ukraine support the ending of this war. We also have some Ukrainian politicians coming out and also talking about this type of sentiment, as well as there are some interesting things happening on the battlefields right now that we are also will be highlighting here. As of course now enters the European Union and Britain coming out and saying, hey, peace? Wait, no, what? We don't want any of that. As they have been the biggest cheerleaders for human sacrifice in the military-industrial complex here. And they have been playing a major effort usurping a lot of what Donald Trump has been trying to achieve here. As right now, we are hearing that Zelensky, allegedly, according to some reports, is really not happy about all of this. And you could see during his kind of outbursts on social media that he is definitely not comfortable with the prospects, as a lot of people are pointing out that if there is peace, there's also going to be some investigations about potential corruption after this war, after this conflict, which could have been related to Zelensky trying to get rid of corruption investigation agencies a couple of weeks ago. Something that, of course, spurred on a lot of people in Ukraine to protest Zelensky, as a lot of people are saying that as soon as this conflict ends, so will his political career. As people are saying, that is when we are going to be seeing a lot of the kind of disclosures here, potentially highlighting some very kind of corrupted behavior. And again, Ukraine filled with corrupted politicians that sell out their people routinely. They have been doing this for quite a long time, even before this conflict started, even before it kicked off, even before the Maidan revolution in 2014. Ukraine was always known as an extremely corrupt place. As right now, we are also hearing that Zelensky has just announced significant new funding. This as the United States has been threatening and hinting and making the maneuvers to take away funding, to take away significant military tools away from them. As right now, there's a weird situation where the United States sells our weapons to NATO. NATO then gives it to Europe. Now we are hearing that might even be cut off soon. But now there's a new significant source of funding. Where's that money coming from? Well, there's news coming in that Russian frozen assets through a lot of the sanctions are now being sent to Ukraine. This is something that, of course, will piss off the Russians. As of course, the Russians are like, hey, this $1.6 billion is ours. And now you just gave it to Ukraine here, as they are also hearing that there could be an additional couple $1 million in aid and equipment from again. And the Europeans are super cheap here, super frugal when it comes to helping out the Ukrainians. Let's just be honest with ourselves. Comparatively to what the United States has been doing here and what Donald Trump has been bragging about. He also made a very interesting comment about some of the land swapping here. But clearly, going into negotiations, if you're Russia, you're like, okay, we want our assets back that you guys are freezing. And now it's like, oh, sorry, they're gone. It sets the negotiations back, which highlights a conspiracy here trying to prolong and defunct and destroy these negotiations before they actually even take place. Now, before talking about that and playing more clips from Donald Trump here, there's two more clips from him that he just made regarding Russia that I thought were very eye-opening. We wanted to tell you about wearechange.shop. I think one of the best products, if not the best product that we have up here that I love is creatine. As you can see here, I'm going through a lot of these. A lot of the supplements here are just empty bottles, mainly because I use them. And creatine, especially during my travels, has been incredible. There have been some interesting findings, specifically with fighting jet lag and sleep deprivation through an increased use of creatine. Now, if you are dealing with sleep issues, as the vast majority of people are, a lot of people report that you could offset the damage of sleep deprivation, which is some people even link to brain damage, through creatine. Creatine, really incredible cognitive benefits. It's not just for your muscles. I can't recommend enough going for long walks, going to the gym, working out, taking care of your body. If you want those extra gains, creatine is amazing for that. But cognitively, I tell you, man, this is next level type of stuff here, as my brain has been unleashed. As you can see here, I work nonstop, and I think that's predominantly because of creatine. Get it right now. You got 2 months of servings for $53 on wearechange.shop. The link is down in the description below, and that is how you support yourself and you support this independent media organization. Now, let's go back here to this particular news here, because if this turns out to be true, this is big. This is huge. €1 billion euros being sent that the Russians are like, hey, this is ours from their government, from their citizenry, especially with how Russia is dealing with a significant economic crunch and attack on a lot of its proxies, on a lot of its partners from Donald Trump here. This could signal a move that could destroy the deal being made or approved or moved forward from here. Now, we'll see exactly how all of this unfolds, as Donald Trump gave us a little bit more details about what we will be seeing and how this type of negotiation and deal will be going through in Russia.
A little bothered by the fact that Zelensky was saying, well, I have to get constitutional approval. I mean, he's got approval to go into war.
Zelensky has been saying, I can't agree to a deal. Our government in unison needs to do it. And people are like, well, no, that's just a cop-out. That's just an excuse here, as Donald Trump mentions the kind of pushback that he's getting before any of the details have even come out. Now, Donald Trump, during his statements, even talked about, hey, I'm going to have my meeting with Putin. I'm either going to walk away and tell them to try to figure it out themselves, or we're going to work out a deal here. He also specifically said, I'm going to get on the phone with the European leaders. I'm going to call Zelensky out of respect, call him immediately after this meeting as soon as I get out the door with Vladimir Putin. Okay? I think that's more than reasonable. Having Zelensky freak out here, having Zelensky say, no, I'm not going to agree to this. We're not giving up 1 inch, one territory. Other European countries saying no. Before the negotiations even happen here, specifically saying no, we're not giving up anything. is automatically creating a situation where we are starting off on the wrong foot here, to say the least here. Now, I think there are issues when it comes to Zelensky not trying to get out of power. I think there's also issues of the military-industrial complex and the intel agencies trying to sabotage this because they understand, hey, I want the power. I want the war. I want an excuse to do all the drug trafficking and human trafficking that usually happens during these particular conflicts. I want my blank check. I want to do all the sacrifices of human lives, especially those white guys. We got to get rid of those white guys, those Slavic white guys. We need an excuse for that. They don't want to get rid of that. Let's just be real with ourselves. That's the harsh reality that a lot of people don't understand here. And if Donald Trump does get this peace deal done, this will be a major notch in his belt of a major success. Since there are so many people, interests, organizations, and powers out there that are trying to sabotage it and stop it.
But he needs approval to do a land swap because there'll be some land swapping going on. I know that through Russia and through conversations with everybody.
There will be some land swapping. Now, what does that mean? Who will get what? As the Russians are saying, look, this is a war. We came, we conquered, we took the land, and that land is ours. A lot of people are making that same argument with the Israelis. The issues, the Israelis, we're paying for it. The issues with the Russians, it's our kind of geopolitical enemy that's doing it on their own here. Now, just a few weeks ago, Donald Trump greenlit major arms deals for Ukraine, giving them advanced missile systems, advanced armored vehicles. And now we're in a situation where Zelensky, again, throwing a fit, not playing ball, not knowing any of the details here, saying automatically no. Now we're hearing that the Pentagon has authorized a move that could see a lot of the equipment originally designated for Ukraine back into U.S. stockpiles, as we have now reports from CNN and the Kiev Independent that the Pentagon is specifically making these moves to soon or already begin the process of diverting weapons that are meant from Ukraine, from U.S. stockpiles, in order to secure our stockpiles, which, according to multiple reports, have been not been fulfilled. Now, Donald Trump has talked about that as well as other political leaders, saying, hey, we're giving everything to the point where we won't have anything to defend ourselves if something happens, leaving us in a strategically vulnerable situation. For what reason are we doing that? Now, Congresswoman MTG came out and she talked about how we need to have an America First agenda. She talked about how the neocons and the establishment Republicans are trying to continue the funding in Ukraine. And we have to understand here, the funding in Ukraine only prolongs what a lot of people see as the inevitable here, and that is the Ukrainians not winning this conflict. Even the mayor of Kiev, Klitschko, a major former boxer, came out and talked about how the situation on the front lines is difficult, and we are seeing multiple reports of a lot of Russian offenses that, again, largely a stalemate, but are moving more towards Russia capturing more villages and towns. They have been doing that at a very snail's pace, but they've been doing that in a very controlled way. Now, the corporate media was telling us these meat wave attacks. Oh, look at these meat. Oh, the Russians are just... That's not what's happening here. The Russians have used a new form of warfare that the Americans and the Ukrainians are now learning and copying from, specifically when it comes to using advanced drone systems and artificial intelligence in order to kind of propel and push forward their kind of front line that has been advancing. Now, Klitschko also talks about how Ukraine is tired of this conflict and how a lot of them are hoping for an immediate diplomatic solution. Yeah, and I think that is fair to say that a lot of people are just sick of this conflict. As looking back at it, if the peace deal was originally signed, the one that Boris Johnson sabotaged, the Ukrainian people would have been better off. If the deal that Elon Musk proposed a couple of years ago, if that would have been taken seriously, the Ukrainians would have been better off. The longer we go on, the more Ukrainians are lost here. The more territory, even though it's not that significant, it's small, but the more territory is being taken here. And when it comes to this military offensive and this military kind of operation here. We have to understand here. The reality of the situation is pretty clear. As even Donald Trump, when asked whether Ukraine can defeat Russia, he says that's kind of stupid.
Warring nation. That's what they do. They fight a lot of wars. A friend of mine said Russia's tough because they just keep on fighting. They beat Hitler, so did we. And they beat Napoleon. You know, they've been doing this for a long time.
Listen, history does tell a very important tale, especially with what has happened previously beforehand in the Russian tundra. And listen, the Soviets, not the biggest fan of them personally myself, especially what they did to my people, as there are now very interesting conversations happening about this conflict ending and potentially one with Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia starting up right after this one. Now, will that be the case? Will that be the situation? We're going to see what kind of develops and what kind of happens here, as it clearly does look like the situation could devolve very quickly and surely. Now, a lot of people are saying as soon as there's a truce, the Russians are going to be attacking and invading more land and territory. Is that just a way to try to sabotage the peace here? I don't know. Is that actually going to happen? I think a very small percentage of it is. And the Russian kind of aspirations, especially under Putin and his empire, are one, to, of course, expand their territory and push back NATO. NATO has been moving closer and closer, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Russians are trying to consider doing very similar moves themselves here. China is playing a role in all of this, as the president of China wanted Trump and Putin to meet to talk about this conflict and to set up this particular summit here. It looks like, this is an article, by the way, from July 18th, as now it looks like this summit, this meeting that the Chinese have been calling for will actually be going through here. Now, what will transpire during this one meeting? As Donald Trump also specifically said, hey, I want to have Zelensky and Putin meet. I think if the two meet, he says, that there's going to be a good chance they're just going to figure it out. And they're going to end the conflict. Then and there, if they're able to meet. Now, Zelensky has been trying to go to this Russian summit, to this Alaska summit. And Donald Trump has said no. Putin said no. That's why he's kind of freaking out here. Now, what I kind of foresee happening here, Trump meeting with Putin, hopefully there's kind of a rough draft or a rough resolution. Listen, the United States is calling all the shots here because we invested in this conflict, we paid for this conflict, and we made this conflict happen. There's no denying it. Even Trump says, hey, this is Biden's war. Biden started it, I'm just trying to end it. He has been saying that, and his policy on this issue has been a little bipolar. Let's just be real with ourselves, because he said, I'm going to end it day one. And then he put a lot of pressure on Zelensky after some sabotage attacks by Zelensky. And then when that didn't work, he put a lot of pressure on Putin. That when that didn't work, he just kind of reverted back to the old policy of the Biden administration arming Ukraine. Trump even bragged how he was the one that stopped the Russians from being able to walk into Kiev, as he talked about how a Russian general made the mistake of not using the highways and using farmland. There was tremendous amounts of rain, and how a lot of those tanks were stopped that were supposed to be going to Kiev. Those tanks that were stopped were taken down by javelins, which Donald Trump says, I gave them javelins. Barack Obama gave them blankets. I gave them javelins. A situation where he is a lot more of a war hawk, a lot more of an aggressor than a lot of his base believes him to be. So it could go either way. This move being made by taking the funds and taking Russian money and just giving it to Ukraine automatically is going to lead off negotiations on a very bad foot here. There are a lot of efforts, and so far I hope and pray that cooler heads prevail, that a deal is made, that the conflict is over, and that there's not going to be any other further kind of escalations. Is that going to be the reality of the situation? Probably not. Conflicts are very easy to start, very difficult to end, and then they re-engage very quickly. Look what's happening in the Middle East with Israel right now. There are these conflicts that, of course, are going to be with us forever. You look at Russia, there's always been a conflict with Russia and Europe. Look at Europe, there's always been major conflicts with Europe. There's also now a kind of, I think, a PR campaign by the Russians trying to talk about how Ukraine's going to invade Poland. I don't buy that. after this conflict, after this war. I don't buy that at all. There are some people who do support this kind of historical figure that took out Polish people, murdered innocent civilians, that is Ukrainian, that the Ukrainians still love, that the Azov Battalion really loves, which I find a little bit ridiculous, to say the least. And personally, as a Polish person, there's a lot of bad blood and a lot of history from the Soviets, from the Ukrainians, and the only thing we could hope for is just resolution, is just an end to this conflict. And if you agree, share this video with your friends and family members. Thank you so much for supporting this independent media organization. Thank you so much for supporting your own independent health journey and getting some creatine. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys doing that, and this is why. I love you guys. Stay tuned for more. All here exclusively on youtube.com/wearechange.